Hello fellow trainers, today we're talking about Great Tusk, one of the paradox forms that is available in Pokemon Scarlet. It has stats of 115 HP, 131 defense and attack with 87 speed and ground fighting typing with the ability Photosynthesis. It's becoming a staple of a lot of teams with great roll compression. It has things like Rapid Spin. It is obviously immune to electric types as well. So let's talk about 4 or 5 sets you might want to use on your next competitive Pokemon team. The first set we're going to highlight is going to be a choice band set with 131 base attack and decent 87 speed. This thing is hitting really hard with 2 120 base power moves in close combat and headlong rush. Close combat is a 120 base fighting type move that is going to lower your defense and special defense by 1 stage, and headlong rush is a base 120 ground type move that's going to lower your defense and special defense by 1 stage as well. Coming off a base 131 attack and potentially having that attack stat boosted by Photosynthesis, this thing is hitting really hard. Fighting and ground is pretty decent coverage, and we do have Ice Spinner. Ice Spinner is going to be a 80 base power ice type move that inflicts damage and also removes any terrain present on the battlefield. In our 4th move slot, we are recommending running Knockoff. It's not a huge damage dealer, but the utility it provides your team is really fantastic, and if you play Draft League, it's always great to have a knockoff user on your team. It also gives you pretty complementary coverage with close combat and headlong rush as well. You can also run things like Rapid Spin or Stone Edge if you'd like to, but I think close combat, headlong rush, Ice Spinner, and knockoff gives you a lot of coverage and a lot of utility that your team can utilize throughout the match. If you need a bulky Pokemon with ground and fighting coverage and decent speed, the choice band set might be for you. If you want something a little bit faster, you can definitely run this with a choice scarf. It may not be the best revenge killer because it is only sitting at 87 speed, but it can surprise some of your opponents bringing a choice scarf set on this Pokemon. And if you are in need for a revenge killer, it still has base 131 attack, it still has base 115 HP and base 131 defense. So you can fill that role, take a hit, maybe revenge something if you need to. Just an alternative to the choice band set if you want something a little bit faster, but you still want to run this Pokemon on your team. The next 2 sets utilize the same moves but have different EV spreads, so we'll talk through those a little bit. The first set is more straightforward in its EV spread. We have max attack, max speed with the Jolly Nature, we have bulk up, headlong rush, close combat, and rapid spin. What you're trying to do here is hopefully when something's switching out, get that bulk up to boost your attack and defense, and then hopefully get some KOs or sweep from there if your opponent doesn't have any other faster monster to revenge you. You can change headlong rush to earthquake if you'd like, and you can change close combat to body press if you don't want to have those defense drops after going for a bulk up. Depending on your team composition, the defense drops might not matter too much, but if you are hoping to stay in on some physical threats after your bulk up, I would recommend changing close combat and headlong rush to the alternatives of earthquake and body press. The second set is a little funky. We have 248 HP, 4 attack, 4 defense, and 252 speed. Same moveset, but what we're hoping to do here is use booster energy to get your speed up. You also can use rapid spin to get another speed boost to outspeed most things. I know Flutter Mane isn't going to be running around quite as much, but you could hopefully outspeed that as well. And then you also have bulk up, so you have a chance to boost your speed, your defense, and your attack, which is all you should hopefully need for this set, but it is a little bit harder to pull off. You could also run this with Yachi Berry if you wanted to, if you're not trying to get that extra speed boost from Photosynthesis. But this one's a little bit more fun, it might be harder to pull off, but if you do pull it off, probably a lot more satisfying than the other bulk up set, or just running a choice scarf or choice band set. Next up, we have a defensive set for Great Tusk. Like we mentioned, 115 HP, 131 defense, so it is a pretty good physical wall if you want it to be so. The only thing that's lacking for it is that there's no reliable recovery, so for that we are going to run leftovers on this set. In terms of moves, we're going to run Earthquake and Body Press as our 2 stabs, Knockoff for utility, and Rapid Spin. You may want to opt to run Stealth Rocks on this set if your team doesn't already have a Stealth Rocker. I like when my ground types have Stealth Rocks, so that's why I'm recommending it here. But in terms of physical defense, this is a really good Pokemon to have as your physical wall. Do keep in mind that it's very lackluster special defense, means you don't want to switch in even to resisted special hits. You obviously don't want to switch into super effective hits, but in terms of physical wall, we are going to be able to resist things like Bug and Dark, which is really helpful, I think, in my opinion. If you want to have a mix of bulky and fast and offensive, you can run a build of like 252 HP, 56 defense, 200 speed that will allow you to outrun Adamant Dragonite, which is awesome. Also can outrun Jolly Breloom and Scizor, which is really helpful. If you're playing standard OU, this probably won't be a set you're going to run, but in Draft League, I could see sets like this picking up steam if this Pokemon is allowed, because it's a little bit faster, it's still bulky, and you could probably even run something like Knockoff on this. You could run Stealth Rocks if you wanted to. So there's a lot of things you could do here. I would recommend a more offensive moveset here, so maybe Ice Spinner, Knockoff, Close Combat, Headlong Rush. I probably wouldn't run Body Press just because it's not going to hit too hard, even though you do that 58 or 56, I should say, defense EVs. But I do think Close Combat's a better fit. Like I mentioned, you can run Stealth Rock if you wanted to, but I would probably go for more offensive here if you are running that extra speed. And I think that's all the sets we're going to recommend. I do want to go over some quick pros and cons and a summary of this Pokemon before we end it. Ultimately, what you're getting is a Pokemon with really great physical bulk, a high defense stat, high base power moves, and 2 really great stabs in fighting and ground. Unfortunately, it's a little slow. It has a really low special defense, so if you are looking for a more well-rounded bulky Pokemon, look somewhere else. But I do think its typing and fighting and ground, the Electric Immunity, Stealth Rock, Rapid Spin, great coverage, means it's a Pokemon you should definitely consider for your team. And with that, let me know your thoughts below. Will you be using this Pokemon on your teams? Do you think it's worth an OU spot? If you're playing Draft League, do you plan on drafting this? And did you find this guide helpful? Are there other Pokemon you want to see me analyze? Are there more things you want to see in these analyses? And as always, if you enjoy Pokemon and other monster taming content, please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time. Alright, bye everyone.